Hey there, rock stars. This is page 29 of Strictly Strings. You found it, and this is a great page. Not only are there some great pieces, but this is a big new concept to learn. If you look on the top of the page, what we do is we always look at all the technique that we have to learn, and then we look through the page and find how the technique is applied to music. So the first thing to look at is a thing called slurred staccato. Now, slurred staccato means that you are going to play multiple notes in one bow, just like a slur. But then you're adding the element of staccato, which we learn on page 28 of notes being separated with a bit of space. So with slurred staccato, what you're doing is you're moving your bow over multiple notes in one direction, but you're adding a little bit of space or clarity in between those notes. So you go like this: down, 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 up, 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 down, 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 up, 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 as opposed to ya da 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 da. It would be ya da ta 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 ta. Clarity as each of those notes change. That's slurred staccato, playing two or more notes in one bow in the same direction. Now, there's a very similar concept, and that's called a hooked bow. So look to the box right next to where it says slurred staccato. So hooked bow is slurred staccato, but it's when it's an uneven rhythm, meaning you've got to deal with a half note followed by a quarter note, or a whole note attached to some other note, or a dotted half note attached to a quarter note. A hooked bow is something that's uneven. That's an extra challenge because that means we have to move our bow for the duration of the first note and then re-emphasize the next note, but it's going to be a different length of bow. So we're doing lots of mathematical measurements as we apply hooked bows. So a hooked bow would look like this: ta, 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 ta. If it was a slur, when it's a hooked bow, we add the slur staccato component, but because the rhythms do not match, it's called a hooked bow instead of just slur staccato. Ta, 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 ta. The hooked bow. Now there's a whole bunch of Italian next to that. It's called da capo. If you see the letters DC, first of all, you should probably think Batman. Then you should think go back to the beginning. DC means da capo, the head, the beginning of a piece of music. So if you see the word DC, that's their way of saying, yo, back to the beginning. Then you're going to see the word fine, not fine, but fine, which means the end. So if it says DC al fine, that means go to the beginning and then stop where it says fine, because that is the new end. We're very used to seeing music where we go all the way to the double bar and that's the end. Well, yep. And if you see this special Italian, DC al fine, go to the beginning of the music and then stop at the fine after you've done the entire piece. Okay, so we're going to find examples of this throughout all of page 29, so go ahead and get those instruments ready. If we look right at page 29, you may still be learning the notes open G, first finger A, B, and C. You may still not always feel comfortable with those lower notes, so you might want to practice saying the notes. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to air bow while saying the notes. This way you can see the application of the slurred staccato or the hooked bowing while you see my arm moving in that direction. Okay? So here's page 29, number 1. If you're not ready to combine those elements, just focus on the note names, stop the video, rewind it, and then go ahead and keep practicing it until you can add the bowing. 1, 2, ready, and G, G, B, B, A, C, C, B, B, D, D, C, C, E, E, D, D, F sharp, F sharp, E, E, G, G, F sharp, F sharp, E, F sharp, G. Rest, lift, repeat. Notice that they move every single bowing and every single note. That's very abnormal. It's only because they're teaching you this new skill. So you see 2 down bows, then you see 2 up bows, then you see 2 down bows, then 2 up bows. Well, unfortunately, what that trains our eyes to do is notice the bowings, but not the new symbol that's connecting those notes. It looks like a slur, but it has those 2 staccato dots attached to the note head. So make sure you notice that new symbol. You also saw that I re-articulated every single note. G, G, B, B, which means that my bow has to stop for now very clearly. Eventually, it becomes a more nuanced and subtle sound, but just to program your body to move the correct direction, it can be really helpful to come to a complete stop. G, stop, G, stop, B, stop, B, stop, A, stop, A, stop, C, stop, C, stop. Make sure you come to a stop. Make sure you apply a little bit of extra weight on your first finger so the beginning of the next note is clear. We want clarity in our sounds. We don't want soggy cereal. We want a crispness to it. That's number one. That is slurred staccato. You can rewind and go over that as many times as you need to learn the note names, to say the note names, or to just practice the skill of stopping your bow clearly. Looking at number two, that's right, that's the hooked bow. We no longer have even rhythms. We have a half note followed by a quarter note. It's the same motion, but now we have to add the element of visual spacing of the length of our bow and applying a certain amount of distance to the half note and then less distance to that quarter note. Okay, so here's number two. This time, I'm not going to say the note names because these are D and A string notes. I'm just going to say bow direction. Ready? Ready, set, and down, down, up, up, down, down, up, repeat. Down, down, up, up, down, down, up. B section, notice it changes from 3/4 time to 4/4 time. They snuck that in there. They want to make sure that you learn an even less even distribution of your bow. You're thinking, I have to use 75% of my bow for the first note and only 25% for that final quarter note. You have to manage your bow, just like if your parents gave you $1 or gave you $5 and said, this has to last all weekend. Okay, if you spend it all on Friday, you've got none left for the other days. So you need to make sure that you're spending your bow wisely so that it lasts for the entire measure. Here's the B section. Ready? 2, 3, 4. Down, 2, 3. Down, up, 2, 3. Up, down, 2, 3. Down, up, 2, 3. Repeat. Down, 2, 3. Down, up, 2, 3. Up, down, 2, 3. Down, up, 2. Rest. Notice your bow has to move very slowly to last. You have to come to a complete stop, and then you have to re-articulate your bow one more time in a very extreme position so that you have a clear sound for that final quarter note. This is a big skill. I'd recommend try practicing these rhythms on an open string. D, 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 D. Put a metronome on. See how slowly you can make the metronome so that you're still even and you have enough bow for that final note. That's a great practice strategy. That's slurred staccato and the hooked bow. If you take a look at number 3 and number 4, you're applying those skills and concepts to a piece of music. Notice in the first measure of the birch tree, those are slurred staccatos. Down, down, up, up. Then if you look at the second line, you'll see a hooked bow, the F sharp to the G. 1, 2, 3, 4, down, 2, 3, down. And you have to make sure that that last note doesn't all of a sudden surprise the audience, because we don't want it to sound like this. Down, 2, 3, 4. That doesn't help anybody. And unless it's an intentional surprise for the audience, that would be the wrong way to play that particular note. Make sure it matches in character. So you have to add just enough weight and just enough speed and have just the right level of clarity at the beginning of the note so it matches the whole concept of the phrase. Down, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, off. Other things to worry about. We've got WB, whole bow. They want lots of bow. They want forte at the beginning. Measure 5, they want mi in the middle of the bow, and they want less of it because it's piano. When we use less bow, it's a softer sound. In addition, look at that tie. We haven't seen ties for pages and pages. If you look at measure 3, 1, 2, 3, and then look at measure 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, you'll see that those two notes are tied together, which means we don't re-articulate. We don't take a new bow to make a new sound. We're tying them together so that note, instead of a half note and a quarter note, it's going to last for 3 beats, a half note plus a quarter note. They can't draw a dotted half note, which would get 3 beats because there's not enough room in that measure. So they add the tie so they can borrow from the next measure to make that note a little bit longer. We have lifts, and we have a return to forte, and that's the birch tree. So here's what I recommend. Go through and practice those skills specifically. Just do measure 1 until you feel comfortable with the slurred staccato. Just do the second line so you feel comfortable with the hooked bow going from the F sharp to the G. Practice making that sound at a forte level. Practice making that sound at a piano level. And then you can put it all together, which is what I'm going to do right now. I'll play page 29, number 3, the birch tree, all the way through. You're welcome to say note names. You're welcome to air bow. You're welcome to pizzicato. You're welcome to clap or count rhythms. And then you can just rewind the video and do it again, and do it again, and do it again. Correct repetitions lead to your goal of accomplishing this in a correct fashion and will also take less time. So go slowly and make sure that you take care of the things that you need to take care of. Here's the birch tree, number 3 on page 29. 1, 2, ready, and down, down, up, up, down, up, up, down, up. This time I'll count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Second line. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, forte, and down, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, off. Now you probably have lots of things to practice for that, whether it's just the slur staccato, whether it's just the hook bowing. Maybe it's saying the note names. Maybe it's making sure that you shifted and did 4th finger A. Maybe it's making sure that your F sharps were high enough. There are always things to practice, and your job is to make it as beautiful as possible every single time you play a note on the instrument. Looking at the next one, we have the Merry Widow Waltz. Well, this is nothing but hooked bowing. Lots of irregular rhythms. And they said, why not make it harder? We're going to change the time signature to 3/4. And you know what? We're also going to add string crossings. And you know what? We're also going to have ties and lifts. And you know what? We're also going to have dynamics. We'll have some forte and we'll have some piano. Merry Widow Waltz has a lot of these different elements. So the first thing that you want to make sure to do is that you have strong command of the symbol that means a hooked bow. So if you look at the first 4 measures, they're all the same. Down, down, up, down, down, up. They're the same. You have to make sure that your arm is constantly flowing and moving, and you have to make sure that you have clarity in the re-articulation, which means you want to make sure that we can hear the second note clearly. Just like I'm speaking with clear consonants, you want to make sure your bow is speaking clearly going from note to note. Then in measure 5, you get your old friend, the dotted half note. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, with a tie. That's right, with a tie. Then you do the same thing again, but this time softer, and it goes back and forth. The skill is repeated over and over and over again. That's on purpose. So what you can do is really focus on the skill in 1 or 2 measures, and then, in theory, if you've truly learned the concept of the hooked bow, and you feel very comfortable reading the notes on the page, combining those 2 skills will go quite quickly. Here is the Merry Widow Waltz. Ready? 1, 2, 3, ready, set, and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, tie, 2, 3, 1, lift your bow, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, tie, ready, lift, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, lift your bow, down, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, down. Combination of so many different elements. A great page to learn 2 huge new skills. Remember, you might want to think about doing these skills just on open strings, or maybe just with your scales, or trying different things on different places on the instrument, practicing 4 notes down, 12 notes down. Try doing really long bows, and then having just that little bit of clarity at the end to do 1 more quarter note, or 1 more 8th note in the same direction, to get really used to all the different combinations of the slurred staccato and the hooked bow. You also get to jump all around the instrument for the G, D, and A string, and you also get to deal with some really beautiful pieces of music with fortes and pianos and lots of different colors. These are now starting to become pieces that are really interesting on lots of different levels. I'm really proud of you, really excited to see that you're already on page 29 and doing all these great skills. I can't wait to hear that continued progress, and remember, every time that you practice, you get a little bit towards your goal, so make sure that you're practicing while paying attention. And if you do practice every day, by the end of the year, you'll be taller.